Hello, hello. Welcome back to Something Different by Reset. Today we've got a really exciting episode for you.
Back.
But yeah, I know we've been back. We've been gone for a little while, but things have been very busy, good.
It's been a month since the apparel launched.
Yes, Lifestyle by Reset finally launched, and things have kept us on our toes and kept us busy. But we're not talking about that today. We actually have a very special guest here today, and I'm going to let Himesh kind of introduce her.
Mihae Ahn. I think she requires no other introduction. But so Mihae and I go way back. We go back to MBA school. I think this gets back to kind of the root of the podcast, why we started it, is about sharing knowledge and experiences among other things. And, I was just kind of cycling through my LinkedIn feed one day. Mihae popped up because, of course, she's a marketing genius. She's an executive. But now she's also an author. So she posted about writing this book, and it's now available on Amazon. If you'd like to go purchase it, we highly recommend it because it's really exciting book.
I have lots of positive things to say about it.
Tells you a lot about her experience, and I won't get into that right now. I'll get the two ladies to talk about that in more detail. But just really excited that you're here, Mihae, and really excited that our listeners get to hear from you about this book and more. So I'll turn it over to you for a quick little intro, if you'd like, and tell us about your book and kind of why you wrote it.
So hello, my name is Mihae, as Himesh introduced. Yes, I recently published the book. It took some time to write it and complete it, but yes, I published it in May, so it's been it's been 2 months. Yeah, it's time flies, but yeah, 2 months. Wrote the book. Writing has always been my passion, I guess, and it has been a creative outlet for me. I'm a book nerd. I love reading. There are many books that are just beautifully written, and ton of suggestions and recommendations and advice we can apply to our life. And whenever I had a really good book in my hands, I dreamt about writing my own book that is um, as good as those amazing books. And
It was amazing. You wrote an
December.
amazing book.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, last year, December, early December, it was in 2022. I just decided to start writing all those voices that I had, those imposter thoughts, right? You don't really have much to write about. Who are you to write a book? All those doubts, and yeah, I was sick of them. So I'm done. I'm done with those thoughts. It may go nowhere, but until you try it, you will never know. So yeah, I started writing, and it felt so good because it was my dream, right? Because I wanted to do it. All the thoughts that in my head just came out as I started writing. And of course, there were times words were not properly formed. The thoughts were in my head, but they were everywhere. Then I took a pause and put it aside. But other than those few moments, it was a good ride. And here we are.
I mean, it was pretty quick, really.
I think that was a quick turnaround for someone to write a book. For my listeners, she actually wrote the book in 4 months and published it in March of 2023. So that is a big accomplishment itself.
Yep.
Yeah, it was May. May 2023. But because you're right, because of the editing process and proofreading process, the actual writing time was, yes, 4 months. Yeah.
But even just to do that,
Yes.
that's an accomplishment itself. It's hard to do something like that and to step outside of your comfort zone and really put yourself out there, which you did. I've read this book. It was fantastic. It was relatable. Everything that was in there was inspirational, but at the same time, it really made me think. A lot of the things that were there were, her real life. She really went in deep talking about the things that she's experienced. And I think all of us we sit back and we hide these things in our little bubble. And I feel like, Mihae, you really did, it's inspirational, that you put those words in a book. And now other people are reading about it. But it's not that they're bad things. It's things that actually will help others kind of, think about their experiences and say, wait, I shouldn't stop. I should keep going as well. And I think that's what I really got from it. There are parts in this book that I can relate to in so many different ways. But I obviously don't want to, give away the whole book. I do want everyone to go and read it. It's honestly, it's very relaxing. I found it very motivational, and for me, it's like I like that kind of.
It's
read.
an interesting story too.
Yes,
Just like
it's
your
a very
background's
interesting
different,
story.
where you ended up is quite different.
Yeah,
And how you got there is, it's not typical. It's
Yeah,
relatable,
thank
but
you.
it's not typical. So
So we do have a
Yeah,
few things
that
we want to
was
ask you about and kind of talk about. In your book, you do kind of give your readers a little background of the younger you and how you moved from Korea to New York City to study fashion. And then what we wanted to kind of tell our listeners is like what drew you towards studying in fashion, and how did, this career path, like how was it perceived in the Asian community and the culture?
right. Yes. So before I start talking about that, um, one of the things that you just mentioned, Rika, around um, the stories that was resonating with you as you were reading the book, that was one of the several reasons why I wrote the book. So one was definitely, yes, I mentioned I'm a book nerd. I love writing and reading, and it is my creative outlet. In addition to that selfish reason to just fulfill my wants and needs and desire, another thing that I thought about was those books that I have been reading my whole life. Most of them were written by like mega successful people out there. We know them, we know their story. Their stories are really special. But as I was reading them, yes, I was inspired and motivated, and I really thank them for sharing their stories. But at the same time, how about the other stories that are not really shared, that are not really told? I'm not them. I don't really see myself in them. There should be a lot of people who feel that way. So the more stories are right shared by more people, that's a good thing. Human society, like humanity, is so beautiful because of the diversity. So why don't I add a little bit of that diversity into uh, yeah, the stories that are told? So that was one of the motivations.
It's
So
great.
far,
It's
like
honestly, it
you,
was
Rika.
great.
totally
Mhm.
spot on. Yeah.
You
Yes.
and
Yeah,
it may
thank you.
not
And thank
be.
you for
Sorry, no, continue.
yeah. Thank you for bringing it up, and thank you for having me here so that way more people are aware of it, and hopefully they also can relate to some of the stories, if not all stories that I am telling in the book, and that can have a positive impact, hopefully. Yeah, that
Yeah.
was one of
Definitely.
the
Definitely.
Definitely.
goals.
Definitely.
I think everyone, just like you said, I think everyone has their stories. And in a way, it's when you read someone else's story, you're able to relate and say, wait, this is kind of like my story. This is kind of like what I've gone through. And hey, if she's able to do it, maybe I can do it too. And I think that's really what we're trying to do is just, if you're able to get to one person, reach out to one person, it makes a difference. and it makes you feel
Yes.
like you did something. And it's, I don't know. For me, that's an accomplishment,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm. Absolutely.
Yes,
For
for
sure.
sure. So yeah, one story that I tell in the book is um, how I moved to New York City from my hometown. I'm from Seoul, Korea. Moved to New York City by myself when I was 19 to study fashion in the city at Parsons at the fashion school. The reason why I chose fashion back then when I was 18 was I wanted to be a CEO. Even as a really young girl, I wanted to be a CEO at some point in my career. We have many family members who were in that position, who started their own business and run their own business, including my dad. And I just wanted to be that. And I thought a teenage me to become a CEO as a woman, which industry would be best bet? Fashion, maybe, because fashion seems to have more female population compared to other industries that I uh, learned about. So why not fashion? That was very simple way of teenage me decided the major. And I was in a university back home in Seoul, and at the second year, decided to move to New York City to continue studying at Parsons, given its reputation, given the weight that the degree from that school carried in the industry. That's what I did. It, yeah.
Yeah,
I-
it just
in
shows
terms of,
shows the
yes,
audacity you
please
had
continue.
at
I did.
18
Yeah.
to, say, I want to be a CEO. I'm going to
Yeah.
just study fashion. And oh, by the way, I'm just going to go move myself to New York City, the biggest city in the world, by myself.
Now I'm thinking, I have a daughter, she's 5. Now I'm thinking, what the heck my parents were thinking to send 19-year-old daughter to New York City by alone, right? Oh, so yeah, maybe I will do the same if that's what she wants later, given that what I stand for is like to support her in every way possible so she can test her limit and do whatever the heck she wants to do with her life. So maybe I will do the same. And I give big kudos to my parents now that I'm a parent too, right? Until you become parent, I think you
It's a
don't.
big thing. It is until
Yeah,
you become a parent.
it's a realization.
Yes, right? And the full appreciation that you get to have for your parents. So now I'm looking back, goodness, I really need to appreciate their courage and support for me. But it was definitely especially my mom, well, my dad too. But mom told me often when I was growing up, you shouldn't stay in a little pond. We have a saying in Korea, frog or toad in a little pond. Like, don't be that. Get out to the outside of your own pond and explore. Until you do that, you cannot really grow as much. So that was her point of view, and that definitely influenced how I thought about my future. And so when that time came, I yeah, I will go. And my dad, being business man who ran his own company, he made me write business proposal. By the way, that I don't think that I wrote about it in the book.
No, it's not
He
in the
told me,
book.
okay, so
Oh, there you
that
go. Little nugget.
you want to do that. Okay, I will support you if that's what you want to do, but then you need to convince me. You need to write a proposal why this is the sound decision for you. So meeting me. yeah, that's what it takes. Okay, then I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna give it to you. So I sat down and I wrote. Probably it was all bullshit, right? I guess 18-year-old.
But that's what he's
But I
testing.
wrote it
He's
full
testing you
page,
on your ability to talk bullshit because that's what you got to do to kind of make it. You know.
right? Fake it until you make it, right? So I wrote it and I gave it to him. Yeah. And I saw his smirk in his face when I gave it to him. I'm sure he was, ah, goodness, it is not. But she did it. I'm proud of her. If she wants to go, right, I'm gonna support her. So yeah, I got the blessing and I went to New York. And after 20 years, I'm here in Toronto,
I mean,
Canada.
I
Yeah.
think you give a great explanation on your journey and your life from New York to the experiences you had while in New York and your path that led you to living in Toronto, Canada. But again, you have to buy the book to hear about it all because it's amazing how she wrote it. She explains everything, and it's all relatable. I really do think it's all relatable in a different way. And everyone's life is different, but something that she may say may be relatable to you. And I feel like that was one thing that I was able to relate to is, you took risks. You took a career path change. I mean, she went to fashion school, but she ended up doing her MBA at U of T where she met Himash. And, like how the circle brings everyone together. Like who knew that, what has it been? 5 years, 6 years?
So oh my
Yeah,
goodness,
we
like 4 or 5 years.
graduated
Yeah.
2019. Yeah, 2019
Yeah.
we yeah graduated. So now,
And
yeah.
it brought us back, right? This book brought us all back,
Yeah.
Yeah.
and we are able to.
Power of a network.
um,
Yes, for sure.
but we even just like, in the book, you talk about intuition and logic. They go hand to hand, but the biggest hurdle that one faces is finding the motive to go from intuition to logic or
Yeah.
logically putting ideas in action kind of thing. How did you do that? And what would you recommend to
Right.
others?
Yes. The story that I wrote in the book, it was for me, it was the opposite that was a challenge. So for me, when I was in, it was in Toronto. Yeah, I was in Toronto after 6 years in New York City. I moved to Toronto, and after a few years in Toronto, I faced a fork in the road, whether to stay here as an immigrant and continue to shape my life here, or move back home where everyone is, in terms of my family and also closest friends. So I was 30 back then and thought, okay, this is one decision that I really cannot screw up, because at 30, I thought it will shape a lot of decisions in the future, not just one decision and that's it. It will have big impact on everything that I do going forward. So I shouldn't really screw this up. With that pressure, I was so obsessed with pros and cons list. I was very much logic based thinking rather than intuition. My intuition was clear. Looking back, it was very clear, stay here. My gut was telling me, stay here. But because of the pressure and because of back to the Asian community that you mentioned, Rika, that little bit of different culture, a little bit of different responsibilities that you bear. I thought if I were to stay here, then all those cultural norms and responsibilities and expectations, I'm not going to meet those. So how can I justify what my intuition is telling when I will be failing all the other aspects of life? Life is complicated, right? It's not one dimensional, it is multidimensional. So that was quite painful process that I went through, that I put myself through. So long story short, yeah, for me it was the opposite.
Yep.
So
And it's
yeah.
crazy because I mean, we come from an Indian culture that is, I think, a little bit
Similar, yeah.
similar to the Asian community. And it's a lot of pressure you put on yourself, and you
Yeah.
also, you go through this phase in life where you feel like you have to please everybody. But then it's like, no, no.
Yes.
In order for me to be successful, I need to first take care of myself and do what I need in order for me to grow and to be helpful to my family. Or, again, at 30, you're thinking, okay, wait a minute. This is it. Like, I got to make a decision. Where do I go from here? And I get
Mhm.
it. And this is where I
And
say it's relatable. The book is relatable because I feel like people don't talk about these things in life. And when you don't talk about it, you're holding it in and not realizing that there is so much you can do with it. Right. And that's
yes.
when, even just reading bits and pieces, I sat there and I would look back at Hemish and say, hey, she just said this. And I love that it's so personal, but it's so, it's real. It's not just, an editor who edited it to make it sound all fancy and, with big words. It was you. It was you being very real. And I think that's what's relatable.
Yes.
Yep.
And one way that I believe the reason why I was obsessed with um, the thought of, okay, you need to be logical here. Forget about your gut, forget about your intuition. What are you talking about? You need to think logically. I forced myself to do that for many reasons, but one is definitely imposter syndrome that I was suffering. So to your point, Rika, that when you know it's right for you, you need to move forward, and sometimes you make decisions for yourself, even though that decision would not be welcomed by everyone in your life. For me, that was challenging because I didn't have enough confidence in me. So, okay, I feel this is the right path for me, but what do I know? What do I know about life? You are only 30 and you don't really have so far 3 decades of your life. Like, come on, push it together and just think logically with your brain, not your. So yeah, that's another pressure that I had on me. That imposter syndrome, goodness, it's still haunting me every day. I try to fight it and learning more about it and think about why I am having this, why am I suffering this, and what helps me to overcome it one by one, step by step. It I will not overcome it one day, just aha, gone. It's not gonna happen
Happen
that way.
overnight. It doesn't happen overnight.
Yes. Yeah. So
But I
step by
think,
step.
I think you have to have a little bit of, you know, that imposter syndrome question in your mind, especially if you're somebody like yourself who's intellectually curious and always wants to learn and grow, because then you have to make yourself feel a little bit uncomfortable. The the other hand of that is you have to have a little bit of confidence to say, yeah, I'm okay being here. I'm okay being an
yeah.
imposter. I have the ability and the skill set to, move forward and grow from here. So
Yeah.
I think it's a very fine balance,
Yes.
but
It
yeah.
is. Look, you got
Oh,
to where
true.
you are in your career and, just your life in general by doing what you did. And you chose to do what you did because it was best for you. And I think that's how everyone should be thinking about, their lives. I think a lot of people do get caught up in this world of our culture I need to make sure I you know, please everybody, or I need to make sure everyone is happy so that I can be happy. But it really isn't like that. In order to be happy yourself and be able to grow as an individual, it really does mean that you
Yeah.
have to take a step back and do what is best for you and really come out of your own shell and figure out, okay, well, you know what? This works for me, not that. And I'm going to take that chance and I'm going to take that risk and I'm going to go that way. And if people are not okay with it, you also have to be comfortable with that.
Hmm.
I think that's a big thing. It's a big hand of it is if you're willing to take the risk, you have to be prepared for all of the lashback you're going to get for it because that's what happens in our culture. So it is what it is, but you take the risk and you just do it. And that's
Yeah.
what I
And
just reading your book, that's what I took in. I was like, you know what? It's not just our culture. There are so many other cultures that
I
have
was gonna say it's
this.
not just culture.
yeah,
It's other
It's
things
other
like
things.
the
And
gender,
yes,
discussion and all that, the
yes,
diversity of the discussion, everything.
yes,
Yeah.
for sure. And with so going with our making decisions for ourselves and all, it's always with one caveat that the fact that you're making decisions, that means you're also owning the impact of your decision and owning the consequences of your decisions, right? Without knowing that and without the commitment, okay, once you make the decision, now you are going to live through your decision. You are owning it. One thing that I hear and witness is that hesitation, sometimes the hesitation behind the decision is the fear of owning every aspect of the decision. So when I look back as well, the difficult decisions that I made, I think I can own the consequences, but I'm not so sure what the consequences are gonna be. So maybe I should take more time. Yeah, right. But as long as you um, yeah, have that with you. Whatever happens now going forward, it is on me and I will figure shit out as I go. And having that confidence, that would be another key.
Yep. Yep.
for sure. So there was, I'm going back to the book. So there was a part in the book which you will know when you read. Mihae is a female in an executive position in her career. And, you wrote how you only took 3 months of maternity leave after having your daughter. And, would you have done anything differently? Did you ever feel like, you know, you had taken more time off? Did you ever feel like if you had taken time off, it would have, kind of impacted your career path? I mean, as females, this is a question that we all ask ourselves. We all are those that are career oriented and moving in that direction. You always fear that, oh, I'm taking this time off. Will I have to take a step back in my career path? And I think all females fear that. It's a fear that you go through.
Yeah.
So I wanted to ask you about that.
Yes. Man, the imposter syndrome comes to mind again. I think that was one of the reasons behind it, that I cannot just take a year off or more than a year off. In Canada, you can extend your mat leave to 18 months. So if I do that, will I be okay? That that fear was there, but will I do it again the same way? Will I do anything differently? I think I'll do it again the same way that I did. It doesn't mean that I think everyone should do that. No. not at all. So I want to make it very clear that you don't have to shorten your mat leave or not taking mat leave to be able to be successful in your career. That's not what I'm saying. So please don't take it that way. Um, there were multiple reasons why I chose that path. One was the flexibility that I had with my career. It was before COVID time, but even before COVID, I didn't have to go into the office every day. Only occasionally I went into the office, so I was working from home. With that setup and rather flexible hours I was able to do with the type of work that I do, I was able to nurse my kid, breastfeed my kid. I was able to have either my mom as a help in the house with me. I'm working from home, and with me, my mom's there, or having a nanny again in the house with me. Sometimes my husband also worked from home, so my husband was also there. So multiple people were there with different type of the break schedule. We could make it work, and I had so much energy to manage that. And sometimes I travel to the office with my kid and my nanny to the office when I had meetings, and they were hanging out in the office when I had meetings. So those flexibilities, not everyone has with the different types of jobs and roles that they play, right? So that was definitely luxury in a way that I had. So that was one, and it even with my kid on my lap and in my arms, breastfeeding and also co-sleeping or whatnot, I was still able to work on my phone. I was able to work on my laptop,
It
and
never
I
ends,
just
right?
felt, yeah, well, it is doable. It is doable, and I'm enjoying doing multiple things. So why not trying it? And I tried it, and it just worked out for me. So again, this is for me, it worked out. I talked to many successful women before and after my own pregnancy and birth experience. Some did choose to take long mat leave and still thrive in their career after doing that. Some folks wanted to work throughout the experience. So it's all it all depends on what your circumstance allows you to do and what you'd like to do in your life. So yeah, so if this resonates with you and that's what you want to do, don't feel guilty for making that decision. Again, owning your decision. Like, many things that I heard when I was making that decision, what is wrong with you type comment that I heard from other folks. Well, your baby needs you and you can take 12-month or 18-month mat leave. Why you're not taking it? You are a mom, right? That the guilt that people were trying to push on me. And sometimes I thought maybe something is wrong with me. Like, why do I feel this?
Yeah.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
It's the mom shame,
So
right? Everyone is always mom shaming about the fact that, oh, you're choosing to do
yeah,
this over
yeah,
taking care of your children. And it's sometimes you
yeah.
can do it all, or sometimes you have to do it in order for you to be okay to be there for your child. It just
Mhm.
everyone's life is different. And you were able to do this, which is
Yes.
obviously, to me, that's very inspirational. And it's also, that is, you're super mom. Let's just say that.
Yeah, no, no, yeah, there definitely some things have to give. Like, you, right? In life, you cannot have everything. Like, for me, back to the decision that I decided to stay here. One thing that I knew even before getting married and having kids, I'm not going to have that expensive network here who can give hands, who can give us hands when we need with young kids and all. I knew that. And that was definitely burden. It was time to time difficult to juggle everything between my husband and I, just two of us with young child. And it still goes right.
I mean,
I
look,
I know you
this is
know.
something we were able to relate with, right? We ourselves set ourselves up in a way where we were both in our careers, but we also told ourselves we are having kids, we are going to take care of our kids. We are going to be able to do this, and we need to be able to do this without help. And this also goes back to a discussion that's in your book about I took on this feeling of I have to do it all. And I wanted to be a perfectionist about everything and anything. And I needed to do it. I didn't need help. And I did. I took that on. I raised my two kids. We're still raising our two kids by ourselves because we did move away and we don't have a lot of help. But it makes you think.
We own the decision.
We own the decision. We do. We really do own the decision and the consequences. But
Yes.
again, relaying back to your book, it is something that you think about now. And you think about the fact that if, it's not, yes, you feel that little guilt of like, oh, I'm going to ask somebody for help. But at the end of the day, that person isn't going to think they're more than willing to help. But you have this thing instilled in your head saying, oh, they're probably just gonna be like, oh, now she needs my help, and you have this like something talking to you, telling you that it's negative, but really it's not.
Yes.
It's just seeking a little help to get you through whatever you're doing, or just so that you're able to take 2 meetings, let's say, and you just need somebody to watch your kids for 2 hours, But again, I was able to relate. I was able to relate to some of the discussions that you talk about in your book. And that's why I'm trying to tell people to read it, especially moms. I feel like more and more moms go through this. And it's like if you're able to kind of understand it, also own up to the things that you've done, but be able to kind of move past it and realize, okay, this is the next thing I need to do. Then it's like, oh, okay, you're able to get past these things and kind of focus on the next, if that makes sense.
Yes, yes. And I talk about in the book asking for help. For sure, I talk about it because I struggle with it still, like you said, Vika. And talk about it in the book in a way that asking for help creates community. Because people usually want to help because that makes them feel good. Because when we think about how, right, our brain works, when we are in the position of being able to provide help, that's very fulfilling in a way. We feel useful, we feel good, we're contributing, and we feel more love and support for the person that we are helping. And that again is a positive thing psychologically. So it's all in all good. Of course, you don't want to be the quote unquote needy one who always need help, like who cannot be independent. That's different story. That is completely different story. But as long as it is done in a respectful way, that helps create our own community. So it took me a long time to realize that and to get to a point to time ask help. Still I struggle with it, but yeah, ask for help when
I
you
only
when you
admitted
need it
it.
and want it.
I only admitted it to myself when I read your book. So honestly, this was only 2 months ago, let's say. And I said, okay, she makes sense. Yeah, this is what I need to start doing. Especially because he mentions traveling more, so I'm home with the kids a lot. So that's when you think about
Yeah.
it and you're like, if I had just somebody here for 2 hours so I could run out and do something without taking two kids with me everywhere I'm going,
Yeah.
it
Yes.
would be nice.
Yes.
But it did. It's a reality check in a sense too, is that, a little help goes a long way. And if you're able to
Yes.
understand that, then you're able to move past that and actually ask for the help. So that's where I'm trying to get at. And I think a lot of females, mothers do, and it could be fathers as well, because, there are fathers out there too that can relate to this, where they don't understand or can comprehend the fact that they need help. Some of us don't.
Yep.
It
Yep.
takes one other person's experience for you to realize that, hey, maybe I
Oh,
should
yeah.
be doing this,
That might work.
and that's really what it is.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
So another thing in your book you do write about, and you don't really go into it. You kind of just throw it in the book. And it is, you mentioned that you wrote a children's book as part of your final thesis in university. Can you tell us about that? And then are our readers expecting something from you soon? I don't know.
Right. That question brings lots of thoughts actually. One challenge, so before I talk about children's book, I do this often, right? When you ask a question, I don't answer that question, but I just talk about whatever I want to talk about and then come back to the question. So let me do that again.
Okay.
So
It's
It's
okay.
Before
That's
talk about the
okay.
children's book.
It works. It rounds out the answer. It leads. It gives you like a
Yes.
lead in to the answer. That's why you're such a great
Yeah.
storyteller.
another challenge that I have had and recently realizing that it wasn't really a challenge. Well, it was a challenge back then when I was going through it, but now looking back, it was more of an opportunity than a challenge. What I mean by that is, so yes, I wrote a children's book as my undergrad thesis. We had this year-long course, and throughout the year, we developed thesis, and we got to choose the medium format, how we are going to talk about the year-long research in what format. So I chose children's book as the format to tell the story of my research and my finding and so on. So the research was about sustainable city design and how we can educate the initiatives that the cities and towns are undertaking to the public, so that way more participation from the public. So did research around New York City's recycling program and Toronto's recycling program, and compared the two different cities and talked about that finding in a children's book format to educate the children around the impact of not participating in those activities and so on. And from there, after working in fashion industry in New York City for a few years, I decided to move to Toronto, Canada, which is another story which I tell in the book a little bit. After I decided to move here, um, instead of going into fashion again, I after a few years I thought, okay, this is not really for me. I do not want to grow my career in fashion. So now what? And I decided to go into master's program in environmental studies to continue my research around the sustainability stuff. So I did, and as I was studying for that master's program, I wrote about climate change and social justice. So climate justice, how climate change is affecting um, the our population, worldwide population, differently. The least haves and the people who contributed the least to climate change are suffering the most. So the whole social injustice is repeating in that format, the climate change um, format. So I wrote about it, and now look at where I am. I'm in IT. I'm in tech industry. After the degree, I went into renewable energy and energy sector, and now I'm IT. So looking back my career, I often thought, why can't I stick with something and just stay there, figure something out early on, and stay there? It's by the time, like when I turned 30, where when I was having trouble deciding whether to stay here or moving home, many of my friends who figured out early on at 23 or 24, whenever they graduated, they now have 6 years of career under their belt. Depending on the industry they went into, they accumulated enough wealth for themselves to do whatever the next. And I, I'm a loser. Like, why am I so lost? Why so many different things? But now I'm realizing, okay, I wrote a book that's not about sustainability, not about climate change, not about any of the things that I did, completely different topic that I wrote about. But book is something that I writing something that I love doing. So I wrote a book, and you are asking me about the children's book because I wrote a book, and it's right. So back to that. So your question really encouraged me to think about, yeah, I wrote a book back then too. I never really thought about it when I was writing this book, but yes, I did. And in my position as an executive in tech sector, I am a vice president of marketing. But because of my passion for social justice, um, I have many passion projects that I take on, and this social justice and the gender equity and so on that I thought about and I worked on, I studied, all of those are helping me right now in my position to help our people, help the company that I'm working for, and help the industry in general. So all coming like back to me in a positive way. Everything that I did, all those things that I kind of was shamed of myself for, now
Now
they are
they're all
all right.
Valuable. It's
So
valuable.
yes, life is funny that way. So yeah, many interns and students that I mentored, they have common questions that they ask. I'm lost. I don't know what's next for me. I think my friends figured out. When I look at their social media, but I'm lost. What am I supposed to do? So my advice to them is, it's completely normal to feel lost. Many more people than you realize feel lost, and being lost is in a way a good thing,
Yep.
It is a good
Yep.
because
thing, yeah.
then you get to, right, get out of your comfort zone, and you can test your limit, and you can try more things, and that, at least from my experience, will be value add, not debt in your life going forward. So, yeah, long way to answer.
No, but that
No,
like it's so again, yeah, it's like you said, it's relatable
it's
because
relatable.
in your in your case, all the things that make Mihae Mihae. You want to be busy, you want to do different things, you have all these passion projects. It all comes around at some point in your life to become it becomes valuable as information, as an experience, something that you
Yeah.
can use later in your life. So it's very interesting
It
to.
is, but if you think about it, and this is just kind of off topic, but it's like in general, a lot of people are looking for inspirational, motivational books to read,
Yeah,
and they're
in its
trying to
category.
find an like you said, people feel lost, but they it's like a sense of like shame. I feel like people feel like they're embarrassed about the fact that they're lost. And then they're trying to find answers in things that they're reading or somewhat. You said again that you had people come to you and say, you know, oh, our friends look like they figured things out on social media. Social media is not the real life of someone. You know, a lot of people post things to cover up their life, or they show that their life is fabulous, but they may be lost as well. And I think that's something that is out there. That is something that people they're just not comfortable telling others that they're lost or that they need help, or that maybe a discussion like this that they hear over a podcast might make them realize, hey, maybe I need to do this.
Wait, I wrote a book too.
Yes.
But anyways, I think we kind of talked about a lot of things, and I honestly, I will tell everyone, I want you guys to go read this because it is something that I've deeply felt connected with, and I wasn't able to stop. So I will tell you right now, I read it in one sitting because I needed to read it. I needed to know what was next. And I myself love reading books that are motivational and inspirational. And so it was just something that I could relate to. And it was like, okay, what did she do to help her with this? And so it was like, okay, I got to read it. I need to know. But just, you know, if you've got a few minutes, you know, even 10 minutes at night before going to bed and you want to read something, this is definitely something you need to go and buy. Mihae, you wrote it perfectly, and I know it's called Perfectly Incomplete, but we're hoping to hear, you know, another story from you, another book coming soon. I really do. I will be the first one to buy it. You know it.
And we'll have you back again for the next one.
Yeah, of course.
I think we can have many, many conversations.
Yeah. And if anyone, you know, anyone
Thank you for having me.
of course, if anyone listening do have questions or anything for me, hey, you're more than welcome to send us an email, and we can relay the questions or anything that you have to talk about. We can let me know. But at the same time, guys, you can buy the book at Amazon.com or Amazon.ca, and we'll also put the link under the podcast description, so you can go ahead and purchase it directly from the description as well. Mihae, we really enjoyed having this discussion with you today, and hopefully we'll have you back soon.
Anything else you wanted to highlight?
No, other than that, I admire you too for the decisions that you have made to create the life that you want for yourselves and for your kids. It is very inspiring and admirable. So, yeah, I will leave it at that. And thank you so much for having me. And thank you for being you. You are an inspiration. So, thank you for being you. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Mihae, and just thanks again for doing this. Again, to our listeners, we are open to, you know, having discussions with other collabs and just talking about things that are different. And hopefully we'll be able to talk about something different in our next episode. Thanks again for tuning in today.
See ya.
Bye.